Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Colleen Aversa with Winsor & Newton. I'll be your moderator today. And I'm joined by artist Shealeen Louise, who will be instructing you on how to paint these sweet and spring-inspired tulips using Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone, as Felicia said, the class is being recorded. So if you're just hanging out with us today and watching, want to paint this another time, or if you feel like you missed something while painting along, you can watch this class on YouTube, Michael's YouTube, or michaels.com/classes, 24 to 48 hours. Also, keep your eye on the chat throughout the class. We might be posting some links and information there you might find helpful. And if you have any questions, just pop them on there. We'll do our best to get them answered for you. So with that said, please enjoy the class, everyone, and I'll hand it over to Shealeen.
All right, hello, everybody. So today I have the chat pulled up, and I didn't know I could do that. So that was the first time I ever saw everybody saying where they're from, and I got like really choked up just seeing where everybody's from. So it's such an honor to be with you. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us wherever you are. So today we're going to be painting a tulips watercolor, and I am actually really looking forward to this one. I think it's a really great, maybe a more beginner intermediate class. I think there's something for everybody in this one, and there's going to be some fun color mixing, which I love to do. So let's switch to overhead view, and I'm going to talk you through some supplies, and then we will get to sketching and painting. So I am using 9x12. This is cold press watercolor paper from Winsor & Newton. I am going to use 4 different colors today. I'm using yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, sap green, and burnt sienna. So I like to have my paints squeezed out onto this palette. So that's kind of how I like to work. But if you have the Winsor & Newton pocket palette set, all 4 of those colors are in here, and they work pretty much the same. Once they're dried, they all work the same. I think I'm going to use 3 brushes today. Sometimes I don't use all the brushes I think I will, but that's the plan. I'm using a size 10, a size 5, and a size 3 round brush. And these are all Cotman Winsor & Newton brushes. But if you don't have those exact sizes, I think it's going to be just fine. Just use a mixture of sizes. That's kind of what I like to do. I have a glass of water, I got a paper towel, and a pencil. So I'm going to pull my sketch into frame. And I'm going to walk you through my steps for sketching this. If you've already sketched it ahead of time, awesome. This might be a great time to grab a cup of tea. This will take me a minute. And if you want to sketch along with me in real time, then great. All right, this is always the hard part. I'm not gonna lie to you. Explaining how to sketch something is sometimes it's kind of challenging. So I like to always start by getting like the big, the focal points, the anchors of the painting placed. So I'm gonna just use this. This is just a number 2 pencil. I'm gonna just kind of place where I want this focal point tulip, the one that's open facing towards us. So it's just kind of slightly right of center. And then over here, we kind of have another round shape. And this might be a little bit hard to see, I apologize. Up here we have this tulip that's facing upward, and that's definitely got an egg shape to it. And then we have some stems going downward, but let me first, I'm going to adjust this. I want this one to be a little bit lower. And I always like to erase all my unnecessary pencil lines. Do not want unnecessary pencil markings. Only the ones we need. And that feels pretty good. So I am going to get the shapes of these flowers kind of flushed out, and then we'll go to the stems and the leaves. So let's start with the easiest one, the egg-shaped one. So just notice at the bottom, it's got a heavier roundness to it than the top. We have this one petal that kind of is just right in the center. And then up at the top, we kind of have these points. Easy enough. And then let's go ahead and draw your stem. And then let's work on the one just underneath it. So notice with this flower, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals. This one has 6 petals as well. So we have 3 that are equally spaced out. So let's start with those 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And then we have 3 other ones that are just behind those ones. One, 2, 3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line just underneath all of these petals. And that's going to help to give the impression later on that these petals are maybe that they're still curling just a little bit on the tips. They're still curling inward. So just kind of follow the shape, the shape of the edge of that petal. And then go ahead and place some little stamen pollen pods, just wherever. We'll come back and add a little more detail there later. And then let's draw a couple of lines on each of the petals. So these are just little veins going along the center. We're going to add quite a bit of detail to this flower later. I didn't want to sketch out all of the little things we're going to do, but that's a pretty great place to start. Okay, and then we're going to work on this third and final flower. This one has a little bit more of a challenging shape to it. So you'll notice it's not facing straight forward and it's not facing straight away, but it's kind of at an angle. So that gives it a little bit more of a challenge to it. So I think that the easiest way to sketch this is to start with the outer petals. So start with this shape that's kind of like a, I don't know, kind of a crescent shape almost. Kind of reminds me of a loaf of bread. Or an orange slice. Okay, and then we have one right next to it. Here we go. Smaller shape. Easy enough, right? And then we have one coming up just above this one on the left. And then I have one that's kind of getting a little bit more of a different shape to it. Kind of has like a 3 shape to it. You see what I'm saying? And then we're going to connect both of these edges. So go ahead and just draw kind of a wavy line. I don't want it to be too perfect. We got one arced line, and then I want you to draw a line just underneath it. Just like we did here, kind of gives the impression that this petal is folding in on itself. And then I have one more petal, a small one. And this one has that line following it just like these ones. Go ahead and draw a few spots for stamen later. And that feels pretty good. So let's go ahead and we'll take a minute, erase unnecessary pencil markings. It helps when we have our finished product, finished painting. It'll help if you take the time to get rid of anything unnecessary right now. Also, you can go ahead and draw some lines here and there. Just some little veins. Okay, I'm going to erase a few more things on this center focal point tulip. Okay, I'm going to start working on leaves now. So I'm going to start with the easy ones. These two are just kind of facing over to the right. Nothing too fancy. Just kind of have these long shapes to them. And let's just talk about what we're seeing here as far as stems. So you'll notice they all kind of look like they're all entwined and there's a lot going on here. Just observing here, the focal point is in the front, the focal flower. The stem is in front of all the other ones. So let's go ahead and start with that one. And also I made this stem go down the furthest. Okay. So go ahead and draw a stem that's about the same thickness all the way down. And then let's draw this leaf. So all of these leaves have a little bit of curve going on. So this leaf here, let's see here. I think a good way to draw this is just kind of, we're going to do a bend here. So it's going to go up, down, up, and then back. So it's got kind of a wavy line to it. And then what I'm going to do now is draw one line underneath that connects back to the stem. About halfway up this first line, I'm going to go ahead and draw the back side of this leaf. And then we're going to cut right through that top squiggle line there and then connect. A little bit easier said than done, or maybe easier done than said. I'm not sure. I think it's easier done than said. It's hard to explain that, but I think if you have your reference, you'll be able to follow along there. Okay, so that's the first flower. Now let's go to this one here that's just behind. So go ahead and draw the stem. And it's going to be behind this one. So go ahead and get that mapped out. All right, then we have a leaf over here that's going towards the right. So this one, not quite as fancy as this one, but it does have a little bit of a turn. So you do want to have that kind of curved line on this bottom right side. And then a line that follows the shape of that leaf edge right there. All right. And I think that is all the detail that stem requires, but we just have one more to do. So let's see here. This last stem is the one that's reaching up the highest. So we have a stem that's just peeking through here. And let's just go ahead and go all the way down here. And then we have two leaves here. So these leaves are kind of, well, this one is going to be hiding behind this leaf. So it's going up, back down. This leaf has a little bit of a curve to it as well, just on the end. And this is something that's going to be really easy to accentuate with paint. So if you feel like you're not nailing it as you're drawing it, no worries. I promise it'll be easier with some paints. And we have one more leaf just back this way. And that has a slight turn at the very end as well. All right. So I'm going to hold this up for you. If you're feeling a little bit lost, you can always watch the replay and move at your own pace and, pause the video as you need to. All right, so this is the time to kind of take some inventory, make sure you like the composition of everything. If I could just change one thing in mine, I think I would actually, I'm going to create a little bit more bend in my main stem just because I'm kind of a perfectionist about making sure that my sketch is just what I want it to be. And I think everything else is feeling pretty good. All right, so let's get to painting. Okay, I'm going to pull this out of frame. And also I want to show you guys, I did this painting earlier, just on like a little teeny 3x4, and I think it's so fun and cute. But I just wanted to make sure I knew my color mixing before I before I tried to teach it. So I'm going to pull this to the side. I'm going to pull my palette into frame so you can see what I'm doing as I'm mixing. This doesn't look like clean water, but it is. This jar is just so dirty. So, okay, I'm going to start by getting some yellow ochre mixed. So just bring some water to your palette, activate that color, and then I want you to just get a little puddle of yellow ochre going here. I want it to be nice and flowy, so there's a good amount of water in it. And I'm using my larger brush here. I'm using my size 10. And I want to just go ahead and cover this entire flower over here to the left. And this is going to be a light wash. It's not going to be super dark. I want it to be pretty light. We're going to add some dark color to it later, but first, to begin with, we start light. So just an even yellow ochre layer of watercolor all over this flower. And I think that that feels pretty good. I'll drop just a little bit more over here on this side. This side ended up being a little bit darker than over here. So while it's wet, I can kind of work some more color into it. And the water's going to take it and smooth it pretty evenly. All right, I want you to take that same color and I want you to drop it in the center of our focal point flower. So drop it right in the center, kind of just like maybe like a third of the way up these petals. And then I just cleaned off my brush and I'm just rubbing it on my paper towel. So now I'm going to use this damp brush to just gently smooth that color out. So using the edge of my damp, clean brush, smooth it up, smooth it outward into these petals. We're going to keep everything really soft. There you have it. All right, so I'm going to keep using this brush because this brush actually is it's brand new. It has like a really nice point, so I'm able to hold a lot of water, but I'm also able to get a nice detail point. So I'm going to get a mixture of yellow ochre and alizarin crimson, maybe like a 50-50 mixture. So kind of somewhere in the middle of yellow ochre and alizarin crimson, and that should feel kind of like a peachy pink color. And you can lean more towards the orangey side, or you can lean more towards the pink side, whatever your preference is. I think I want mine to be more of a pink, a true pink color, but a warm pink. All right, so once you have a good amount of that color, I want you to go ahead and paint all of your petals. Go ahead and start on the one that's furthest away from this flower because I don't want it to bleed into that. So I'll just start down here. And I'm just going to go towards the yellow, but I'm not going to cover the yellow. Okay, so this is kind of more for the outer parts of these petals. And then what you can do if you want to keep that line really smooth, use a different brush, a damp, clean brush, and then you can kind of meet those two colors and create like a soft gradient between the two. And so we'll do that for each of those. So go ahead and paint till they meet, till those colors meet one another, the yellow ochre and the alizarin crimson yellow ochre mixture. And then use that damp brush to just really gently create a soft gradient between the two colors. And I love the way these two colors look, yellow ochre and alizarin crimson. That is like beautiful, beautiful color mixture. It kind of creates like a salmon color, like a blush salmon. I don't know. Salmon doesn't sound like a very romantic color. This looks a lot more romantic than salmon does, but you know what I mean. And like I said, this brush, using the large brush for this part, it's holding quite a bit of water. So I'm not having to go back to the palette. I don't even know if I've gone back to the palette yet. I think I have to now though. So a little more paint, get that in your bristles. A couple more petals. And then I'm gonna use that damp brush, smooth it out.
When you finish that last petal, Shealeen, would you mind holding it up when you're done?
Oh,
with it?
absolutely.
Great, thank you.
All right, last one, using my damp brush, smoothing that color downward. All right. Hopefully you can see that all right. So they don't look all exactly the same. I might want to actually add a little bit more to this last petal. Let's see here. That way it feels like a pretty even wash on all of these petals. So every petal has about an equal amount of color as the one next to it. They all look pretty consistent with one another. That feels nice. Okay, we're going to go up to this top flower. So for this flower, I want to do just a solid color. We're going to do alizarin crimson, and we're going to do a really light layer of it. So get some alizarin crimson going. Just that pure color. And let's go ahead and do a light layer of that pink tone all over this flower up here. Cover these petals. Make sure there's a good amount of water in your brush, and you'll find that you can lay down a really smooth layer here, a smooth layer of paint, and use a larger brush here. Using a larger brush is going to help to create that smoother finish, and it just holds a lot more water, so it's going to feel a lot more smooth because that water is going to help take that paint and create a smooth wash. Water is your friend for these kinds of layers. All right, so that's going to dry. We'll give that a minute. Go ahead and clean off your brush. And that is our first layer of paint on our flowers. So we'll let that dry. We're going to move over to our leaves now, and we're going to do our underlayer of our leaves and stems. So get some sap green and yellow ochre. And we're going to get maybe like I think I said a 70-30 ratio. So heavier on the sap green side, but add a little bit of yellow ochre. And that's going to help to create like this really warm, yellowy green color that I just love. I think yellow ochre, adding it to any color, I just love it. Kind of makes it feel more warm and desaturated. So once you got a good amount of paint here. What was that, Colleen?
I just said it brings like an earthy tone
Yes.
to everything, I feel like.
It does. That's a great way to say it. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so we got sap green, yellow ochre, and let's use your larger brush here. Unless your brush it doesn't have a nice point, maybe switch to a smaller brush. You definitely want to have a brush that has a nice point at the end. If your brush is starting to look kind of like a mop brush, like all the bristles are just kind of like, you know what I mean? You don't want to use that. You want it to have a nice point to it. And let's go ahead and do an even light green layer on all of these leaves and all of these stems. You want a good amount of water, and it's going to help to create a really nice even layer. And this is the part where we can just crisscross over everything because it's all going to be the same level of paint here. So just cross right over them. Nobody will ever know. Since I'm right-handed, I try and work on the left side first. That way my wrist isn't sitting on anything. It makes for less mistakes if I start on the left side. And if your flower petals are still a little bit wet, just be careful as you paint next to those, and just come right up next to it, but don't touch it. Okay, almost there. So I'm going to go up here, check your flowers to see if they're dry. And if they are dry, you can come right up next to it and touch it. And the colors won't bleed into one another. But if it is wet, you're going to have green going into your red or vice versa. And you don't want that. And this part is all about getting that ratio of water and paint just right so that whenever you paint, it feels really smooth. So use a large brush, as I said. Make sure there's a lot of water. All right, just taking a moment here, looking it over, seeing how I feel about it. I think I'm in a good spot here. This feels nice. Okay. So I'm going to let these green layers dry, let the leaves and stems dry, clean off my brush. And here I am going to switch to a smaller brush. I'm going to switch to my size 5 brush. So just something that's a little bit smaller. And I am going to come back to our first flower. So our yellow ochre flower. And I'm going to get some yellow ochre mixed right here, just next to the color. And basically what I want to do here is I want to start creating a little bit more dimension, create a little bit more form. So I'm going to start by just dropping some yellow ochre, a strong mixture, just here in the center. Go ahead and do it just on both of these petals, on the inside of these flowers, on the inside of this flower, I should say. And then I want you to grab another brush. I'm going to switch back to my 10, clean damp edge, and smooth that color upwards. Going dark to light, creating a smooth gradient, kind of feathering that color up and outward. You can use that brush to just kind of nudge that color to where you want it to go. See, it already has a lot more dimension, doesn't it? And then we're going to do the same thing on these petals. So just where these two petals meet on the inner petal, I want to drop some yellow ochre here. make sure there's a good amount of water still, but I want there to be more color this time. So this is a darker layer than it was earlier. We did a very watery layer to begin with. This one has a little bit more paint in it. So now I'm using my damp brush to smooth that color upwards just a bit. And then we'll do that same technique. Make sure there's a good amount of water in your mixture here. My issue that I'm running into is that it keeps feeling a little bit too dry. So make sure there's a good amount of water. We'll do the same thing here on the bottom side of this petal. So drop your color, switch brushes, and then smooth it out. Same thing on the left side. We'll do the same thing to both of these petals. So you can go ahead and drop color on both of these at once if you want to. So you just drop color. Make sure your other brush is clean and damp. And then while that paint is still wet, you can just gently feather it up. One more detail I want to do before I move back to this focal point flower here is I'm going to drop a little bit more of that yellow ochre up here in between these two petals, just so we can kind of differentiate between the two. So one color to drop color, sorry, one brush to drop color, and one brush to smooth it out. I'm going to drop a little bit more in a few spots. I like to squint at my paintings as I'm working on it, and it helps me to just kind of see less detail and just see the flower as a whole. So I'm kind of squinting at it, and I'm seeing that I want to drop a little bit more color right there. I want to drop a little bit more color here as well. And now I'm going to let that dry. We'll come back to that. Okay, now we're going to go back to our focal flower here. So I'm going to go back to this mixture of alizarin crimson and yellow ochre. You might have to bring some more water to it or mix more of those two colors. But using my size 5 brush, actually I might even switch to the smaller one. I'm going to switch to my size 3 brush. So get that same color that we were working with earlier, kind of a 50-50 mixture. Mine, I said, was a little bit heavier on the pink. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to just follow these little lines that we drew earlier. And then I also want to draw a few more veins that are reaching to the right and left side of those. Just make sure you got a relaxed arm as you draw this. Does not need to be perfect. And then I'm going to use that same color. And remember how we drew these little lines just underneath the outer edge? I want to drop some paint just on that underneath line, the line that's underneath, and then I'm going to smooth it out. So it helps to create that look that that petal is folding inwards just a little bit. So one brush to drop color. In this case, I'm using my size 3, and I'm still using my big old brush, my size 10. If you want to switch to a smaller brush to smooth out, that might be a good idea. It's all very personal. learning to use the right tool for the job is a very personal kind of thing to figure out. And it's always kind of tweaking as you go. But I like to use a big brush that holds a lot of water, as long as the point is really nice. If that point gets messed up, kind of fuzzy at the end, I don't really like to use them at that point. I know I've told this story before, but my grandma, who was a painter, she used to always give us her ratty old brushes, and she would tell us to go paint on the concrete in the backyard with water. And we're like, wow, we get to use grandma's oil painting brushes, but they were probably just like super, super old and bad quality.
That's a nice way to recycle.
It is, yeah. I'm already keeping the stash. I'm like gonna give them to my kids.
There you go.
All right, so let me think
What
here.
colors were those right then, Shealeen? Sorry.
These are alizarin crimson and yellow ochre.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to do one more little set of details for this flower. So I want to just go where these two where the petals overlap one another. I want to just drop a little bit of that color just right along that pencil edge. Okay, and that's just going to help to create like a different plane. Like it helps to create a little bit of dimension so that it feels like these petals are in front of these ones that are kind of pushed back just ever so slightly. So I'm using my other brush to smooth out what I just did. I'm going to get a little bit more of a dark mixture here. So I'm going to grab a little bit more alizarin crimson and yellow ochre. And just drop it in a few more spots. Want a little bit more drama. And also, I kind of want it to be a little bit more inconsistent. Like I don't want it to feel too perfect. Like maybe in a few spots, you could just kind of add a little dash. So it kind of maybe looks like maybe there's a little bit of a bump in the flower or just inconsistency. You don't want it to look too perfect. Doesn't that feel nice? It feels nice to have those little moments. If you went a little too heavy-handed, you can just blot it with a paper towel or use your other brush to smooth out what you just did. Paper towels are your best friend, or whatever kind of cloth you have. You can use like a terry cloth. It can't be too thick though. You do want it to be on like a thinner side. That way you can really get it to a nice point. Okay.
Hey, Shealeen, when you get a moment, would you be able to maybe zoom in on it just so they can see a little bit?
Absolutely.
You know?
Let me just go ahead and pull my camera down a little bit. You guys let me know if that feels okay. I don't want to crop anything. My phone looks like it's cropped, and then my computer looks like it's not cropped. So I'm not really sure. But okay, somebody said great. Okay, thanks, Michelle. All right, so I'm going to go back up to this flower up top. So I'll switch back to my size 5 brush. I set these aside for a minute. And let's get some alizarin crimson mixed here. So this is going to be a really strong mixture here. So I want you to really get your bristles in there. Let's get some color going. I want it to feel kind of syrupy almost. All right. Once you have a good amount of paint here, let's take your brush. I'm using my size 5. And I am going to start over here on the left side. And I'm going to go along this outer edge up almost to the top, and then I'll stop. And I'm not going to, well, actually, I'll stay just shy of that pencil marking that I drew earlier. So I'm not going to quite touch that. And then I'm gonna start here close to the stem and I'm gonna go up, but I'm gonna keep that light line, okay? So let me hold this for you so you can see. See how I'm keeping these two lines light? That's what I'm trying to do here. So I don't wanna cover that really light, beautiful layer that we have underneath here. I don't wanna cover all of it. I'm gonna go all the way up towards the top. I want to keep a few little streaky moments in here though, just to give it a little bit of interest. Make it look like one of those cool hybrid flowers, maybe. All right, same thing on this right side. Keep that light line there. And then just back here, this little teeny flower tip here, just gonna add some dark alizarin crimson right back up there. This is not a flower that you need to spend too much time with or make it super detailed. This is kind of one of the supporting actors here. Whereas this is like more of a focal point flower. We definitely want to do a really nice job, but it doesn't need to be like crazy detailed. So I'm grabbing a little bit more alizarin crimson, and I'm gonna just layer on a little bit more color here down at the bottom. And layering this color right here is going to help to create like a round shape at the very bottom. Just using that darker value of color. I'm going to add a little bit up here, maybe just a few streaky lines. But I want to save the real drama for down here at the bottom of this flower. Alizarin crimson is a color that is, I love it because you're really able to like get some really dark values, like almost like not black colored, but like very dark. The darkest red. And because this paper is wet, I'm not really able to get to that color right now. I might have to come back and add a little bit later. So I'll let that dry. And let's see here. So both of my other flowers are feeling pretty good. So I'm going to go back to my yellow ochre flower here on the left. I'm going to add a little bit more. So I'm just going to go along the lines that I drew earlier. And just add those little veins. Just adding a little bit more interest to this flower. Drop a little bit more color here on the outer edge. Drop a little bit more between these two. This is the time to just add a little bit more depth, a little more detail. So I drop that color and then I'm going to use my brush while that paint is still wet. So use a damp brush and just smooth it out a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. And I'm going to go back to our leaves. So our leaves and our stems, they need some detail. They look a little bit one-dimensional right now. So go back to your sap green, yellow ochre mixture. Sap green is another color that if you look at it, look how light it goes towards. Like look at what a light color it can be. And then also look up here in the corner at this little pile of paint here. That is a very dark color. So we are able to get to like an almost black green, very dark color value. So just keep that in mind. That's one of those colors. Yellow ochre, not so much. Like if you look at yellow ochre, like that's a pretty light color. Like you're not able to get to a really dark yellow ochre. All right, so what I want to do here is I'm going to start back here at this yellow ochre stem, and I'm going to just darken that green. We're going to start to create some shadow, start to create some depth. Let's add a little bit of a dark green just underneath our top flower. Make sure that you're not touching wet paint here. If it's wet, just come up right next to it. I'm gonna go along the left side, maybe down the right side a little bit, but keep the center of your stem light. That is very important. Keep the center of your stems this light green. Trust me, you're gonna like how it turns out. All right, just underneath here. I'm gonna add a little bit of a dark green to this stem, and then I'm gonna just go along the left side. Same thing here. Add some dark, dark green just underneath this flower so that it looks like it's kind of cast into shadow a bit. All right, and then just down here, going along the left side of the flower, this leaf, I'm going to make the bottom side of that leaf a dark green, and then go along the left side. For this leaf over here, I want you to make the back side dark, just that tip where it's turning, make that super dark. And then we'll also make this part here dark as well. As I'm losing paint in my brush, it's getting lighter and lighter, and that actually feels just fine. So what I kind of want is I want it to go from dark to light, just a little bit. You can drop a little bit more darkness just here where they kind of meet. All right, so this leaf that's turning away over here on the left side, I want you to make just the edge a dark green. It's really starting to have some dimension now, doesn't it? Just those little moments of like the dark stems, the leaf that's turning, the darker green on the left side. So you can kind of imagine that maybe the sun is shining from over here. So the left side has a darker green. Do the same thing on this stem. Come along the back side of this leaf. Isn't that feeling nice? I hope you feel like yours is feeling nice too. So just on the back side of this little leaf, I just added a little bit of darkness there. A little bit of that darker green mixture, sap green and yellow ochre. I'm going to add this dark green on the left side of our last stem. This main stem, I haven't done it yet on this one, so I'll go ahead and do that right now. You can use your other brush to start smoothing some of those lines out. If you find any spots look a little bit too, oops, have a little bit of pink in it still. Lift that up. So as I was saying, you can use your other brush, your small brush, to smooth out some of that color. If you dropped any paint spots that look a little bit too heavy-handed, you can just kind of smooth that out. Kind of squint at your painting. Remember that trick, just squint at it. See if there's anything that jumps out at you that you would like to tweak. This is a good moment to do that. All right, and then this last leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop some dark green here just right next to the stem. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I just grabbed a little bit more water. My mixture is drying out pretty quickly here. I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to keep the back side of this leaf light. All right, and then smooth, 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 smooth. Meet in the middle here. Isn't that nice? I love that gradient. That feels so good. I just love painting. It's so satisfying.
Watching you paint is equally as satisfying. Shealeen.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's good. So I could do this all day. Okay, so last couple of leaves. So we're going to keep these really simple. Just drop a little bit of light green here. You don't want to go too dark for these ones. So just, use a little more water, dilute your paint, and you'll get that nice lighter green color. And then I'm just going to kind of faintly pull that color out up towards the ends of these leaves, but again, keeping it pretty light. I'm going to smooth out what I did here earlier. And I believe I just have a couple more things to do here. So I'm going to switch to my smallest brush, and then I'm going to use burnt sienna, which we have not used yet. So I'm going to get some burnt sienna going over here, up here in the corner. So twirl your brush in there, and then we're going to drop just a few moments of burnt sienna for these little stamen, pollen, bud, pod things. I'm just going to call them for this. I'm going to say for the stamen. And that just transforms that flower, doesn't it? It just gives it feels so finished. I feel like a flower isn't finished until it has the stamen. Last thing I'll do is I'm going to go back to my alizarin crimson. Let's get that really dark mixture going. I'm using my size 3 brush. And then since this flower up here is dried, I'm going to drop just a little bit more of that dark pink color. Squinting, trying to decide where I want to add a little bit more. Okay. Brush down. That feels like a good place to stop. I would wait a while before you erase this. I definitely don't want you to mess anything up. So wait till it's totally dry, and then you can erase it. So let me pull in my finished version. So every single time I have painted this, my 3 times I've painted it, it always looks a little bit different. Each time the colors are not exactly the same every time. And I'm sure yours doesn't look exactly like mine, but I would love to see yours. If anybody wants to hold it up, I'll switch to grid view so I can see if anybody wants to hold it up for me. Also, I'm fairly certain my mom is going to take this class today, and I don't know. I'm looking for you, Mom. Oh my goodness, these look beautiful. I love it. And I can tell some of you sketched along with me in real time, and that looks amazing. So nice. And if you would like to share it, I think, Colleen, it was listed like how to do all that and the tags and all that good stuff.
Yes, I did drop them in the chat. I can do it real quick before we sign off.
And I also wanted to remind everybody that in May 2nd, I think, we're going to be doing a strawberries class. So here is what that painting is going to look like. Really looking forward to this one. We're going to be using, I think we're going to use white ink. So make sure to get that, because it's not just watercolors this time. We're going to use watercolors and then just the white ink, or you can use white wash. But looking forward to that. That's a month away. So yeah, it'll be a minute. But thank you guys so much for joining today. This was a really, really fun class. And if you would like to share it, I would love to see it. So just be sure to tag me. And I will see you again in May.
Before we actually end, I just want to let everyone know that strawberry class, you should see it tomorrow. So we definitely would love for you to visit michaels.com/classes and sign up for that class. Again, it's going to be May 3rd. So please keep a lookout for that class.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time.